My name is John M. O'Connor Jr. I'm a machinist mate, E5, qualified in submarines. And then I got my first assignment to the USS Bang. And I was introduced to the lead engineer, the chief engineman, or whomever you want to know, and I was accepted and folded into the family. And it was an experience that I will never ever forget, and never ever forget the camaraderie of a sub sailor. If you go to sub school, you go out on cruises for days on different ships. One of my cruises when I was in sub school was on the Sailfish, which is the sister ship to the Nautilus. The difference between the Nautilus and the Sailfish is the Nautilus has a nuclear reactor. The Sailfish had 4 378 or 278 diesel engines in it. Other than that, they were similar. They weren't exactly. What did I do? I was awed that I was going to be on this. I was shocked. For lack of a better term, I was probably loving every moment of it. It fulfilled my dream, as it were, at the time. And I was folded into that family very well. Well, the first thing you do is you're a mess cook. And that means you work for either the chief cook or whoever the cook is for the day. It's not the best job in the world, but it's not the worst job in the world. I mean, blah, blah, it's okay. That was for a number of weeks. It wasn't months. It was, and then I was assigned to the forward engine room, which had one diesel engine and an item called a Prairie Master, which was an experimental item that would envelop a submerged submarine in teeny tiny bubbles, not Don Ho, teeny tiny bubbles, which would baffle sonar. It couldn't actually do that. When I was assigned to the forward engine room, I was an oiler. That means you have a clipboard with a whole bunch of things on it, and you have a gauge board that has a whole lot of gauges on it. What's the RPMs of the engine? What's the temperature of the seawater? What's the temperature of the cooling water? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You do that at least once every hour, and if your throttleman is a nice guy, which most of them were that I worked for, then you would do the coffee run. You would go and get your 2 coffees and bring them back, and you'd sit and you'd wait. Next hour come, you do the same thing. It was repetitious. That's when we were at sea. That's when we were running engines. If we were at sea and we were submerged, naturally you don't run a diesel unless you put the snorkel up. And that happens a number of times. As an oiler, rather than only taking the readings, I ran a fuel oil purifier, which took the stuff out of diesel fuel, which was like tar, and it was a long tube, and after you cleaned it out, you were black. I also, when the throttleman was starting the diesel, there was a procedure he did. He'd blow all the water down with air, and then he'd throw a throttle switch to start the diesels, and then he'd kick a drain with his left foot, and then he'd pull up something called a fuel rack, which let the diesel fuel go into each cylinder. While he was doing that, my job was to grab a gigantic wheel, which was the exhaust manifold, and crank that SOB open as quickly as I could before the engine ignited. That's my job as an oiler. If you're somewhat intelligent and you pay attention, you don't become a throttleman unless you're an oiler. You become a throttleman when you can understand everything that goes on with that piece of machinery. Shortly, I was a throttleman. I had somebody else working for me, taking the readings, running my coffee, and closing my exhaust valve or opening my exhaust valve.